Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Pup, Pup, and Away podcast. My name is Stephanie. You may know me as Steph the Pro Dog Mom on all my social media and also at Pup, Pup, and Away because I am the very proud owner of Pup, Pup, and Away, where we specialize in pet care with a behavioral edge. Located in San Antonio, we do boarding, socialization, all kinds of training. I am a certified dog trainer and canine behaviorist, and I did that a little bit out of order because I'm trying a different setup. If you're watching this, I got a little bit of a different setup going on today. And today you just get me. I will be talking today about a very cool study that just came out by the Farmer's Dog. So if you guys don't know who the Farmer's Dog is, it is a company that makes gently cooked food. Now, in all transparency, I don't love the Farmer's Dog, but if you know anything about me, I am all about feeding our dogs a fresher food diet, whatever that looks like for you. When you look at a spectrum of dog food, on one end of the spectrum, we have complete raw. In the middle, we have gently cooked. Further along down the line, that might be more like your freeze dried, things like that. And then on the very opposite end of the spectrum is where we have kibble. And if you've listened to any of my other podcasts, any of my other content, you know that I don't really love kibble for a variety of reasons, but it is, to go back to Farmer's Dog. So I like the Farmer's Dog because it gives people a really convenient way to feed a less processed, a more fresh food diet. But it can be pretty pricey. And I have found that quite a few dogs tend to get pancreatitis whenever they're on the Farmer's Dog. I am not 1,000% too sure why. My guess is because it is still pretty high in carb content. It has a lot of rice, it has a lot of sweet potatoes in it. And so for a gently cooked diet, that's, as a type of diet, that's great. But when we're looking at the content of the diet as well, I still think that we can do a little bit better in that department. But they put out a year-long study, and it just came out, where they obviously tested dogs between kibble fed and fresh food fed. And so we're going to go over the study today and its results because it has been something that we've been talking about for quite some time. But one thing that you might get from vets, one thing that you might get from other people in like the medical community is there's not much research that supports that a fresh food diet is better. This is one of them now. And they're right, there's not a ton, but unfortunately that's because a lot of the studies that are done, I just realized that my mic's not even plugged in. This is just a prop at this point. But I also found that it doesn't really matter as far as the sound quality goes. Great, now I lost my own train. This is what happens when I am doing a podcast episode by myself. I just tend to talk to myself. But we what we find is that when we do have studies in the pet food industry, unfortunately, the majority of them are done by bigger companies like Hill Science Diet, Royal Canin, Purina Pro Plan, because they are big companies. They have a lot of money that they can toss at funding and marketing and doing these research studies. But of course, one thing that I always keep in mind, and this is kind of one thing about the Farmer's Dog study as well, is whenever I have a company that's funding a study, of course, they have specific results that they want to see. And there's unfortunately kind of a lot of back end that we don't get to see as consumers and as a general public. How many studies did they have to go through that they tossed out? How many changes in the method do they have to change before they actually were comfortable and happy with the product of the test that we see today? So that's always something that I don't know the answer to that for any of the studies, but it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Even so much so that the study that was done about, what was it? The DCM, the dilated cardiomyopathy, and grain-free diets. That was a study that was done by somebody who completely fudged up numbers, who had a financial agenda for other big brand companies to kind of push that narrative a little bit more. So just because it's a scientific study, there can be some, shenanigans going on in there. But, all that to say is there are studies now. The Farmer's Dog is one of them. And of course, I'm going to talk about it because it does support what I've been saying about a freshly cooked diet can be something that is can positively impact your dog. So let's get into it. I do have notes because I just read over it not too long ago and my brain is mush. So bear with me. So it is peer reviewed also. So not only did they put out the study, so to counteract my little argument about a brand putting out a company to support its own product, this is peer reviewed. So it does counteract that little argument right there. They partnered up with Cornell University, which is pretty cool. And they looked at 22 senior sled dogs. So 22 definitely can be a pretty low number as far as your data is concerned. But obviously, this is a study that is funded by a smaller company. So I still think that's pretty great. And it was a study that lasted a whole year, which is pretty awesome as well. So these senior dogs, they were at least 12 years old. They were all mixed breeds, but they were all like sled dogs in Alaska. And what they did first is they had a washout period. So what they did is all the dogs in the study ate a kibble diet, the same kibble diet for 4 months. So that way everyone was kind of at the same baseline. After that 4 months, some of the dogs were kept on that kibble diet and some of the dogs were transitioned to the farmer's dog, their chicken recipe. And then they stayed on these on these diets for another year. Now, with just within 1 month of being on that fresh food diet, we saw a huge spike in a lot of the positive things that we're going to talk about. And then after that 1 month, things just kind of plateaued, but still things were very positive. So what did we see in the blood work? Because not only did they look at body weight and body composition on a monthly basis, but they also drew blood and they looked at a variety of different markers within the blood at day 0, month 1, month 3, month 6, and month 12. I don't know what happened to month 9, why they didn't do any blood serum samples there. But they didn't do it for whatever reason. And the biggest thing that we're looking at the blood is different metabolites that are in the blood. Now, the overall arching theme of what we found, or what they found and what I read about, is that our dogs have better metabolism when they're on a fresher food diet. And that's important for so many reasons, because your metabolism just isn't, can you keep weight off? Can you lose weight quickly? How fast do you gain weight? That's not the only thing about your metabolism. Yes, that's a pretty big aspect of it, but your metabolism is also responsible for how you convert your food to energy. And obviously it's important what food we're feeding to be converted into energy, but still that's very important. Your metabolism is also really important for how your body is going to repair itself, how your muscles are going to be rebuilding. Whenever we have a lower metabolism, we also see a lot of older dogs have like muscle waste, so they lose a lot of their muscle mass. And that's something that I've talked about with Mr. Sully over there, because he did experience that. We just upped his protein and some other things there. But again, that's something that a lot of vets will say is it's just inevitable. It's just something that old dogs have, just go through. And yes, that's true because it's part of aging, but now we have things that we can do to support our dogs through that. Sully gained some weight back. He is no longer like old, feeble, old man. It's not just something that you have to accept because your dog is older. But anyways, your metabolism is also really important for how your body is going to deal with waste as well, right? So if you have a low metabolism and you're eating a lot of junk food, your body's going to have a hard time getting rid, processing through that waste and getting rid of it, detoxifying. That's another thing. But the biggest thing that I was really interested in, something that's going to show up pretty obviously in the study, is your metabolism is also going to help your cells in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is like the powerhouse cell. And thank God to, Miss Baroni Ingle in my, what was that, freshman or sophomore year of biology, when she made us make these cells. So that mitochondria is that little powerhouse part of the cell that's going to be giving your cell its energy. And when that cell doesn't have enough energy, it's not going to repair itself. It's going to die. You're not going to have a lot. Then you have a body full of just dead cells that aren't repairing themselves. And the body has to get rid of them. Again, that waste pathway that we just talked about. And so what that ends up leading to is high oxidative stress. That's why we talk so much about antioxidants and blueberries and all these things, is to help support the body to get rid of that oxidative stress. So metabolism, super important. So with just within 1 month, the fresh food group's blood work shifted. More markers of fat burning and cleaner energy. They had more beneficial gut metabolites and fewer AGEs. Now, AGEs is an acronym, AGE, AGEs, and this stands for Advanced Glycinated. Glycinated? Yeah. Oh gosh, of course we know write that. End products. So basically, these are compounds or harmful compounds that are made whenever we are making kibble, because the fat, the sugar, the protein, they all just get heated to these really high temperatures, and that creates this compound called AGs. Now, AGs are linked to inflammation, and they're also linked to aging as well. So when we're feeding a food that is high in AGs, the body's accumulating these AGs. They're having a low metabolism because we're not feeding it proper food. So the body's having a hard time getting rid of these AGs. So these AGs are collecting in the body, and now we have more inflammation and a harder time aging. So lots going on there. And all this happened without weight loss. They even kind of shifted the calories and the intakes of the dog. So that's why they looked at the body weight and the body composition on a monthly basis to make sure that weight stays the same. Now, these dogs were also housed individually, but they were, and I think they were like at a facility, is kind of what it sounded like to me. They weren't dogs that were living in people's houses, but they all had like socialization time. They weren't encouraged to like be active and to work out, but they had the opportunity to be out together in small groups so that they can have some socialization. They weren't just like, I don't ever see another dog throughout this whole year. And so they were able to, kind of control certain things in that regard. Another big thing that they found was a lot more short chain fatty acids in the dogs that were fresh food fed. So the fresh food dogs had a higher level of short chain fatty acids, especially butyrate and isobutyrate. So basically, short chain fatty acids are made by the gut bugs forming fermenting fibers in the food. They support colon lining. They help boost the immune system, and they have anti-inflammatory and even brain health implications as well. So we do want to see a higher amount of short chain fatty acids, and those are going to be supported by the ingredients in the food that we give. So it suggests that fresh food was feeding their microbiome in ways that create more of those postbiotics, so the probiotics at their waste, that keep inflammation in check. We also saw a lot more antioxidants in the body. So not only are we having less AGs to decrease antioxidants or to increase oxidative stress, but we're also seeing more antioxidants. So fresh fed dogs showed increased levels of omega-3s, including EPA and DHA, carnosine, encinarine, and ergothioneine, and all these are molecules with antioxidant and cell protective roles, which means our cells on a cellular level, we're healthier, we are more productive, and we're taking better care of ourselves, thus regeneration and repairing, and our body being able to take better care of itself is really helpful. So these help buffer oxidative stress and support tissues like the muscle, the brain, eye health, skin, all kinds of stuff there. So all in all, what does this study really mean, and what does it not mean? So it does mean that feeding a fresh, minimally processed, human-grade food definitely can help shift a senior dog's metabolism fairly quickly, again in just a month, and then keep it at that nice steady stream. So these dogs showed a lot of progress within a month, and then they plateaued and stayed there. It wasn't something that spiked and then their metabolism went back to whatever after the body adjusted. This was something that they continually saw throughout the entire study. We have lower markers tied to sugar damage and high heat processing. Those are going to be the AGs. And we have, and also supports gut-derived short-chain fatty acids and antioxidant status, which is all great. Now, this is just showing that you can, I'm not saying that you're slowing down the aging, but you're just supporting your dog through that. I'm 36, and when I hurt something, like I like to work out also, and so I notice now that I'm sore a little bit longer. I have to stretch. I have to before and after I work out. I have to kind of sit there and meditate. When I wake up in the morning, I have to wiggle my body around a little bit more. All of those are different ways that I myself are aging, and of course our dogs are feeling those same things too. So this is just a way of fueling the body to take care of itself better and more effectively. What it's not saying is that your dog is going to live longer. What it's not saying is you're going to have fewer vet visits. What it's not saying is that there's going to be a lower disease rate. This also did not look at like macronutrients of anything, right? We didn't look at We weren't looking at what a senior dog should be eating. We did not look at, is carb content really important for dogs? All that we did was look at a kibble diet and a fresh food diet and kind of compare those two and how it helps or doesn't help our dog with aging. So what does this mean that you can do for your dog at home? For those of you who do feed kibble, and even something like switching over to a commercially prepared, gently cooked diet, that can be expensive. I'm not gonna lie, I fed farmer's dog for a bit and it was pretty pricey. So don't panic. I mean, just because you feed your dog kibble doesn't mean that you're a bad pet parent. But maybe we can consider a couple of things like adding fresh food toppers to your kibble. It can be giving your dog a little bit more of those fruits and vegetables when you're cutting up that salad, or maybe you make your dog a little side of that chicken while you're cooking and sauteing your chicken. Maybe you have like another bland little pot of chicken off on the side and you're adding that to their food. Maybe you consider looking at your dog food and checking out the ingredients that are in there. Again, we didn't talk really about the ingredients, and this is saying fresh food diet, meaning the cooking process is something to be the most considered in, but still the quality of your ingredients are going to be something to look at too. Most kibbles are going to be made with food that is not human grade. It's going to be those the kind of like the leftovers of everything, and there's pros and cons to that, because what else are we going to do with these leftovers unless we feed it to our dogs? So it is, one way that we can kind of clean up the system, and just utilize the waste that we're making. But looking at your dog food and seeing what kind of ingredients are going into it, whether you're looking at the back of the bag or you're calling that dog food company and just asking, where do you get your ingredients from? Are they rendered ingredients, which means it's going to be more of the leftover stuff, or do you actually use human grade ingredients to first start off with? Maybe you're also considering adding in different fats and proteins and omega-3s, because those are also going to have, the more that we boost those in the bowl, the more that we're going to have pretty similar results as well. So all in all, for senior dogs, because that's what we looked at, is senior dogs, but in my opinion, if it applies to senior dogs, it most likely can apply to anything. But for senior dogs specifically, switching from a kibble to a fresh human grade dog food can lead to fast and lasting shifts towards a more youthful metabolic profile. That's better fat use, more gut-friendly metabolites, and fewer aging-related AGs, so less inflammation, less oxidative stress. I will link the study to the show notes if you want to geek out and actually read through it. I highly encourage you to send it over to a friend, especially your veterinarian, especially if you have a hard time having a conversation with your vet, and your vet tends to be someone that says there's no studies that suggest that feeding fresh food is beneficial to your dog. Now you can gently say, hey doc, this study just came out, I would love your input on it. And therefore we have, just more conversations about everything. I hope that you guys enjoy this. It was a pretty short episode, and I hope that just kind of inspires you to consider what's in your dog food bowl. Even if you don't have this in your dog, the more that we can do for our dogs now, the better. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Now, that might be the end of the episode, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Follow us on social media. I'd love to connect with you. We have quite a few social media platforms. For nutrition and holistic pet care tips, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Steph the Pro Dog Mom. You can find fun training tips on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Pup Pup and Away SA. If you're in San Antonio and you want to bring your dog to us for boarding, training, socialization, and nutrition, come find us. But if you're not in San Antonio, we do training and nutrition sessions virtually. Yes, they can be just as effective, I promise. Please rate, review, and subscribe to my podcast on whatever platform you listen on, and please, please, please share with a friend. The positive reinforcement of knowing people actually listen to this and find it valuable helps motivate me to keep on recording. We'll see you guys at the next episode.